Okay, this is working again.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's call the meeting of the Ed Affairs Committee to order. We will begin with a roll call of the school board, starting with Mrs. Blitzstein.
Mia Blitzstein, present.
Charles Riddell Williams, present.
Liam Mulhern, present.
Annie Lemon, present.
Zachary Epps, present.
Ross Whiting, present.
Pamela Henry, present.
Daniel Schultz, present.
And Robyn Murphy, present. I will now ask for a motion to approve the minutes from the October 21st meeting.
So moved. Ross Whiting.
Second, Mia Blitzstein.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay. Now I would like to turn the meeting over to Ms. Collins.
Well, good evening, everyone. Tonight's Educational Affairs Committee. First, I would like to acknowledge the co-chairs, Robyn Murphy and Dr. Ross Whiting. So thank you for being with us this evening. We are going to, okay. So first, we always like to start off with why we do what we do, highlighting our music today. You see on the slide, tonight on the slide, we're highlighting our music and performing arts students at the high school. Just showing and giving an example of what we do in the district to ensure that we provide our students with opportunities is not about just the academics, it's about making sure that the whole child receives what they need. So just a great way for us to highlight the great things happening here in Showham. Our mission and vision. Which drives the work that we do here in the district. In tonight's presentations, you will continue to hear what we've been doing to ensure that our students feel like they belong, they're engaged, and they continue to excel. The seven pillars for the strategic plan. And then our agenda. So tonight's agenda, you will have the continuous school improvement review and statewide school targets by Dr. Pimental. We will have presentations from our secondary principals around their data and continuous school improvement plans. And then I will conclude the meeting with the update on the comprehensive plan and the academic calendar. Now we'll turn it over to Dr. Pimental.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
This part of the presentation has layers of deja vu. So there's the following slides are a repeat from the October 2025 presentation. So anyone watching from home or as a recording, reference the October recording for a more depth review of the following slides. We're going to do a very light touch just to make sure that everyone can track our data discussions today. Would you mind handing the mouse? So we've embarked on a continuous school improvement methodology. It has 4 questions essentially that guide the work, or 4 phases or stages. And the first phase, which asks the question, where are we and how did we get here? To answer that question, we analyze data using 4 domains of data collection or sources of data. So it's not simply student performance, it's also demographics, perception data, and also what's called programs, which is it's a catch-all for a review of the various programs and processes in the schools that support students. One example would be something like English language learning as a program. And so when the principals discuss their data this evening, part of their discussion will be the multiple measures of data, and this is what is going to be referenced when they're doing that. If you take those 4 steps and spread them across this graphic organizer that you see here, that's sort of the method to the madness behind this graphic organizer, which will be describing a specific targeted area of support that CSI is being used to help advance a program at each of the schools. And so when looking at this graphic organizer, there is sense to this CSI process. They graph one to one another. So there are state and interim targets. Again, please refer to the previous presentation for the details there. In today's presentation, folks watching may notice that we do not discuss science today, and that's because there are new standards and the current state standardized assessments are not in an evaluation year. So science is essentially on hold. A few words about the way that the data is set up today. This is largely in response to our discussions during the October Ed Affairs meeting and presentation around the data. So what you'll notice when we're looking at Cedarbrook data is we've organized things by cohort, which is a different way of seeing the data. So I'll try to walk you through just briefly sort of what you're looking at here. If you look at the orange section, that's the class of, this is an example, by the way. This is all fixed. In case anyone is worried or wondering, these are false data, false information, just to illustrate. So this is the class of 2078. And if you track the darker orange, what you're looking there is the actual performance that that group of students had in 2044, 2045, the following year. And then where it says spring 2047, that's because they have not yet taken the PSSA. So we're in that year, and that's why it's indicating that. In the lighter shade of orange, what that's indicating are the Cheltenham School District derived targets that we've produced in order for that group of students to meet their 2033 goal, which is provided to us by the state. That goal is not a Cheltenham creation, but our interim targets, our year-over-year targets, are created by Cheltenham. And so you can track, if you're looking at that example, the 40% was their performance. And so the next year, their goal was to hit 45%. They actually hit 48%. So using that as one example. So Cedarbrook will be presenting data this way. So we're tracking groups of students over time. And then the high school, this is oriented completely the other way. And this was done on purpose to be confusing. So as not to be confused about what the data is telling you, because this is not cohort data. This is sharing year over year, 11th grade, what's called accountability data, which is how we track and measure keystones. So you really can't track cohorts when it comes to keystones. And so that's where you're just looking at, here's how 11th grade has performed year over year over year. And similarly, in this case, the lighter shade of purple or red is indicating the Cheltenham School District provided goal that is lining that grade level to achieve their 2033 goal. And again, multiple measures of data will be presented by the high school. And without further ado, we'll invite the secondary folks.
We will start our presentation with Mr. Metcalfe from Cedarbrook Middle School.
Good evening. All right, so as Dr. Pimental explained already, with regards to the years, just so everybody is clear, as you see, class of 2032, 23, 24, this is our sixth grade cohort for 25, 26, right? So we're talking about fourth grade in 23, 24, fifth grade, 24, 25, and then sixth grade, 25, 26. So wherever 23, 24 is, it's going to be 2 years back of whatever the class is. So just starting here, this is the data that we currently have. So this is our sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade, and the current ninth graders who are at Cheltenham High School right now. And so displaying their data for English, as you can see for our current sixth grade class, the transition year from fourth to fifth grade, 44 to 43, we closed the gap. I mean, I think we've seen in previous data before where our transition years, we have really lost ground, right? And so here we've closed the gap. It's a 1% gap from fourth grade to fifth grade. As we go to seventh grade, we're looking at from fifth grade to sixth grade, 55% to 50%. There, as you know, Elkins Park, sixth grade to seventh grade, that's a transition year as well. But you can see that we actually have lost ground, right? And so we're looking to see how those scores will pan out. And then we'll get into some of the reasons why we believe that happened and what we're doing. And then as we go down to our eighth grade, we have here when the scholars were in sixth grade, then seventh grade, went from 51% to 50%. And this year, those eighth graders will be looking to see how their scores are. And then our current ninth graders, when they were in seventh grade and eighth grade for English went from 51% to 48%. All right. So starting with our other measures of data that's impacting ELA, our programs and processes. So these are some of the I guess, areas where we believe it's impacted our data, right, in a negative way. And then we'll go over some areas as well as what we're doing to kind of support that. So our academic seminar. So we're looking at our WIN classes. Our WIN classes last year or the previous year, academic seminar happened just one time a week, right? And so that really affected children from being able to have opportunity to receive more support within their classrooms for WIN, for like, let's say math or English. Academic seminar is a class that is for our children who have who receive services in our building, right? No universal intervention program for small groups during WIN. So one of the things that we saw continuously, whenever we had small groups during WIN, and all we could do in the previous 2 years, we had 2 teachers, right? So about 35 to 40 kids total. We saw that we weren't able to provide that opportunity to all children with regards to them getting small group instruction. And those children that we worked with were some of the children who were performing in the lowest quintile. As we reflect on our data, look at our data, we see that our lowest quintile had the highest level of gains, growth. And so that kind of was something that stood out to us that we have to be reactionary. If we're seeing that small group instruction during WIN is having a positive impact on our children, then how do we then get that so all of our children have that opportunity? So we had to make some changes this year with WIN, and some of that was forced. And I do think Ms. Savage, because us not having IXL kind of has us doing work differently, right? And I think that's really important. WIN is not just a time for children to be on a computer doing a program. And we've had this discussion, and so thank you, Dr. Savage, for that. But it really put us in a position where our teachers are now looking at more creative ways to support our children with small group instruction, right? And so they're being put in positions where they have to do reteaching. We're doing extensions, things like that, that's supporting all of our scholars. So our WIN had to change. And one of the ways it changed, and I don't want to repeat this, so I'm going to say it now. We now have every teacher that can offer small group instruction to all of our children. So 2 days out of the 6-day cycle, the math teacher will work on trapezing with our scholars. In addition to that, they will work on Alex, which is it's still a computerized program. And then the teacher will pull a small group, right? And then for the other 4 days, the kids are rotating through other sections. So they do that in English as well. They do it in math. We're doing in science, where we changed our plan up there to include some reading, and we're doing New Zealand articles. So really just changing our whole entire WIN program to fit the needs of our scholars based on the data that we saw from our lowest quintile, growth. In addition to that, CDT data versus FastBridge data. So FastBridge data is giving us really not detailed, but quick data in a short period of time for us to see how our children are doing. The CDT data was very different, right? And so we've shifted over to just looking at our FastBridge data, because our CDT data, while it is important and it tells a story, it would provide us with the information that, hey, your child is on a 5th grade level right now. And we could see a lot of different data points, but it didn't help us necessarily as what we needed right away, right? And so the FastBridge data that we've been more consistent with using now is really giving us the data that we need to really support our scholars with intervention. Next thing, we had 3 new 8th grade English teachers last year as well. The curriculum was the first year of our new curriculum as well, right? So those 2 things kind of combining, is also something that kind of, did not support our scholars necessarily with them making the accurate gains that we would like for them to have to make. Our special education learning support 8th grade class was taught by a learning support teacher, and long-term sub for last year. And I think she did a good job, but still, it's something that impacts us being able to really provide, the maximum amount of support for our scholars. In addition to that, we had curriculum alignment concerns around 6th to 8th grade. We're definitely, with the introduction of Elkins Park being no more, and the introduction of 6th grade CBK East, it's now created opportunity for us to have much greater curriculum alignment. So that was not happening in years past. And so we've already done some things to ensure that our 6th grade and 7th through 7th and 8th grade teachers are able to meet throughout PLCs and have alignment. Again, too many teacher created materials for assessment. So again, Ms. Savage, thank you very much. So we've had these discussions around, hey, we've spent all this money on curriculum. Why are we not using it? So this curriculum has an entire program here, and all we're doing is utilizing certain portions of it. So one of the things that we have grossly used this year has been an AI tool, which is called Writable, but it's allowed teachers to be able to have our scholars engage in much more writing where they're getting quicker feedback, right? And so we know with feedback, even if it's peer feedback, it's very important for children to receive feedback in order to make those incremental changes very quickly to their writing. So that's been very supportive this year, but that's something that, having a new curriculum and teachers not really having an understanding of how to use everything right away, it hinders some of our ability to support our scholars. Excuse me. And then we had one 7th grade teacher. I just want to, as I acknowledge the areas where we struggled, I want to also acknowledge a very successful story that we had. We had a teacher who probably for the last 5 or 6 years was not performing very well when it came to PBAS data. And so I'm going to champion her, but also small group instruction, right? Because we created a plan where every day she was going to do small group instruction in the classroom, and she had amazing growth. She was actually double bounded blue, which is the highest level of growth that you can actually have. So definitely shout out to her. So I just want to make sure we acknowledge her for the amazing work that she did. So if you see on the right, I wanted to also point out some of the areas where we saw some positives, but also some areas where, it wasn't so positive. So for other student performance data for our 7th grade English, the average growth for our lowest quintile, and this is where I'm talking about, and during when, where we saw that quintile growth, the lowest quintile grew by 6.7 points. And quintile is the lowest 20% of our scholars. For our 8th grade English, again, quintile 1 grew by 14.8, quintile 4 grew by 1.7, quintile 5 grew by 15.2. So I will say this again, just trying to acknowledge the great success. It is really difficult to move children who are at the very top. And as you can see, our 5th quintile there, they grew by a very large average of points. Both 7th and 8th grade met the standards for growth for English. If we go down to our demographic and student performance data, our crosswalk, our Black scholars there for both 7th and 8th grade were below the standard for English. Our economically disadvantaged English learners and students with IEPs met the standard for both 7th and 8th grade. And then our lowest performing 33% of children met the standard for both 7th and 8th grade English. Sure. All right, and so as you see on the left-hand side, I spoke about many of these things previously. These are, again, some things that hindered us to be successful, and then also some things that we're doing as well. So obviously, we're doing our data protocol meetings. So all of our teachers at the start of the year had to review all their data and met with every administrator to go over their data, right? Not just the children who left them, but they also had to demonstrate that they've reviewed the data of the children coming in so they know how to support them. Common assessments, right? So our common assessments, again, our common assessments are coming directly from the curriculum. Again, I talked about the use of Writable, which honestly is amazing, a really amazing tool. The turnaround with feedback from children, I think it just puts us in a really good position for children to, one, be able to write a lot, right? And also just get that feedback so they can make incremental changes very quickly. Again, I talked about our WIN intervention plan and the changes, no more IXL. Our review of PVAS data that reflected that whenever we targeted the small construction demographic, we saw growth. So all these things we've gone over. The PD time at the beginning of the school year, my teachers were really, really pleased to have that opportunity. It was just something that they've been talking about, for a very long time. And I think that whole 6 to 8 continuum, them being able to actually meet with the 6th grade teachers, it really provided an opportunity for us to really connect and see, hey, what are you doing down there? And so how can we ensure that, from 6th to 8th grade, we have a continuum of really good articulation of academic expectations. All right. And then, as I mentioned last year, right, we started Operation Achieving Greatness. So these are things that we've added to Operation Achieving Greatness. It was something that, Destined for Greatness is something I always send out to our children. I have a whole thing that I say about it. And so we created this Operation Achieving Greatness. And the aspects of it are D's and F's are not allowed, right? So we really preach to children that, having the opportunity to redo schoolwork, coming up to meet with your teachers when you're confused, raising your hand, all these things are aspects that kind of go into no D's or F's are allowed. Small group instructional model in every classroom. So it's something that we're really pushing. Again, we changed our WIN plan so every teacher can actually have small group instruction in their WIN class. the one-on-one administrator check-in meetings with struggling scholars. So we created a small group of intervention with our scholars, right? And so we are utilizing our intervention manager to log data when we're meeting with those children, but really trying to support them, one, from a mentoring perspective, but two, teaching them like, hey, whenever we meet, we're going to look at your grades, right? We're going to go over this. We're going to go over this data. Hey, how was your day? Just little things like that. But we're trying to give them the skills to, one, understand that you have to check your email daily, but two, checking your grades and going through your assignments is really important. Other things we've done, school-wide electronic DAB. So we've started what we call a digital DAB. Every teacher in the entire school is working with their scholars. So during WIN, we're teaching them how to use it because we make sure we teach that, don't want to just assume that they know how to do it because they're children and technology, but we're teaching that during WIN class. So they're getting into a habit of utilizing that. And the teachers now during class are telling the kids, all right, now go to your digital DAB. And then they're, instructing them to put the assignments and things in there. Incorporation of study skills in the WIN, 1 day out of 6-day cycle. So we just did this for our scholars. We were trying to find just one more thing to help our scholars, and we're looking at a skill that if it's not taught to you, you really don't know how to do it, right? Maybe we have that skill because of certain privileges that we have, or we're able to afford certain things for our scholars with, but teaching children how to learn how to study is definitely a skill that they need to have. So we created a whole entire curriculum, found some curriculum to support our scholars with learning how to study. And I'm going to talk about it moves really, really slow because we don't want to bombard them with things. So it is going through a very slow step of how to take notes, and the children have to bring things, and they have to then, decode things and set things up where they're making flashcards. So it's really active, hands-on, right? It's not just teacher talk. It's moving from some of those things, but moving to hands-on action, right? So they actually engage and engross in what it's like to do the study skills. Again, Friday, our late study. So one of our teachers stays late on Friday. So children who are struggling, again, this is volunteer, right? We do reach out to the children, but they volunteer to go to late study. And so, as I go back up to the D's and F's not allowed, a lot of our, it's not PBIS, but a lot of our activities that we have are tied into grades, right? And so children, after about that first or second, third week, or that second time we do a lunch and learn, children are now trying to get their work in to ensure that they're not part of that D and F crew, so they can actually go to a very fun event. If they don't have the grades, then they do go to a grade recovery where they're focused on something that's to support them to bring their grades up. And again, lunch and learn Fridays, again, is ours. All right, and here is math. So as you can see, again, our 6th grade, our scholars, this is 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade going from left to right. Again, the transition year, there's a 2% drop. If we go to 7th grade, this is grades 5, 6, 7. You see that just make sure I'm 5, 6, 7, right? You're seeing that we had from 5th to 6th grade, we had some growth. Again, this right here, this where our scholars are currently 8th grade. This is 6th, 7th, 8th grade. You're seeing that transition year, 37 to 34%. And then if we go down to the current 9th graders, we're looking at 7th, 8th, 9th grade, where we had an increase from 38 to 40% for math. All right, so measures of data that impact our math scores. Again, our academic seminars I mentioned before, meeting once a week, and the changes, the CDT versus FastBridge. Again, I mentioned that for English. Many of the things that happened, we do things systematically, right? So if we were doing something for English, more than likely we did it for math as well to support our scholars. So there's just a few things that kind of are not the same, right? Because they're different subjects, obviously. Again, the 6th to 8th grade curriculum alignment, the common assessments. So when I talk about common assessments, I'm gonna go again down to the bottom where it says to make teacher-created assessments, right? So how do we really focus in on standards-based assessments? It's not coming from a teacher creating that, right? So we want to make sure that the curriculum is what's driving what our standards are and our summative assessments. And so that's been something that the teachers know they are not allowed to touch this year. It must be standards-based assessments that come from the curriculum we have. And I'll say the curriculum that we have from our math teachers, they are loving it. They do see that it's much more rigorous. It's allowing, and because they're actually going through the process of learning it versus you're coming into a program that we've been doing all along, right? I think it's helping them actually develop more opportunity for kids to productively struggle. right? Because the curriculum is telling them to let them productively struggle, right? It's telling them what to do. And so they're kind of following that guide and it's helping us, teach a little bit differently. And I think that's a good thing, right? We have to all get out of our comfort zone sometimes and do something that we haven't had success in the past. Why are we still doing the same thing, right? So we got to change things. And again, I have one there trying to create the productive struggle. And so if we go over now to other student performance data, our CBK 7th grade math, the lowest quintile, not quantile, quintile was 36.2% growth points on the PSSA, which is very high. That's again what I was talking about, the small group instruction that we noticed for those lowest group of scholars, lowest performing group of scholars. Our 8th grade math PVAS growth index was of 6.46. It was double bounded blue. It's the highest that you can perform for PVAS, our PVAS rating. Our lowest performing 33% of scholars were above the growth standard for 7th grade and well above the growth standard for 8th grade, right? One of the things we noticed with the PSSA, and I think this has something to do with both reading and with math, right, is that our children we have a lot of children that did not do the open-ended questions, and they were right there at being almost proficient, and so we do practice, again, open-ended response questions very much so at the school. And so trying to understand, the rationale for why children just didn't do it. I don't know if it was burnout, just a number of days with the PSSA, but that was something that, we are talking about. How can we kind of solve that problem? So part of it is front loading the message that, hey, we need to do this, And so meeting with our scholars, I know it's not PSSA time just yet, but it's always PSSA time as far as I'm concerned. So we're starting the conversations now about what our expectations are. That's kind of been part of our school culture. If we go to other student performance data here on the bottom left, CBK 8th grade math scholars in each of the quintiles had tremendous average growth, right? So I just think that's really important to demonstrate that. I know here it does 2% doesn't look like it's that much, but when you look at the amount of growth, especially like, again, our highest performing scholars, it's really hard and difficult and challenging to move children at the highest level, right? Because we know that people just naturally tend to focus on deficits, right? And as you can also see, our quintile 3, we had the second highest amount of average point growth. Obviously, quintile 1, as I said, that's why we did what we did with our WIN classes. And that's also why we are like, look, if you can see small group instruction works, then this needs to be something school-wide we're doing. Like, there is no debate anymore. There is no might. Like, this is what we're doing as part of a school. Again, our demographic and student performance data crosswalk, 7th grade, our economically disadvantaged and Black students were below the growth standard for 7th grade math. 8th grade economically disadvantaged and Black students were above the growth standard for 8th grade math, with a growth index of 3.31. And then our 7th grade ELL students or English learner students, they were below the growth standard. Our 8th grade English learner students were above the growth standard. Our 7th grade students' 5Ps were above the growth standard. Our 8th grade students' 5Ps met the growth standard, right? So we have data that's varying in a number of different areas, right? Special education for 7th grade, we're seeing that they were above the growth standard. In 8th grade, they met the growth standard, right? And again, our children with disabilities, as you look here, we are definitely having some things happen that are positive and want to continue to do that. But how do we take what we're doing there and ensure that all of our scholars are having those opportunities to have the exposure? And our action plan for math. So I kind of talked this into as we were going over the data and stuff, but just to, again, go over that. Again, the staff analyzation of multiple measures of data, our data protocol meetings with staff members, our school-wide use of small group instruction. Again, the curriculum generated tests and assessments. So the full use of our components first. And this doesn't mean that we don't allow teachers to have some level of creativity, but before you try anything else, you got to do this, right? And so the program for our math reveal, it has scripted videos in there for children to look at and view, right? And those things, again, are creating productive struggle. It has starters and anticipatory sets and things like that built into the program to really help guide our teachers with how to support our scholars the best, right? So if you're thinking about do-nows when children come into the classroom, or an anticipatory set just to get someone thinking about what the lesson may be about, those are things that are supporting our children with them just having to think about something before they actually write something down. Excuse me. Our academic seminar is back to 3 days out of the week. Our winter intervention plan changes, again, as I mentioned before, right, is really, again, just by looking at our quintile data for our PVAS scores. Again, the PLC, we've had a couple super PLCs where, as part of our unofficial continuous school improvement plan, is really bringing the two schools together, even though we're on two separate campuses. So we've had meetings where all of CPK East has come over to CPK Main. We plan to go over to CPK East as well, but trying to now create this school where we're on the same page, one band, one sound. It is very challenging, but it's something that we're definitely working to do. But part of it, working with that curriculum piece is so important, right? And so seeing how different teachers are teaching, and then picking up on, hey, some of the good strategies that our peers are doing, but also like, how does this curriculum go from 6 to 8 hours online, right? And so 6th through 8th grade, it's all reveal. I know we're working on some other curriculum alignment and expectations coming forward also for our younger grades. So we will definitely probably see some really good changes. Again, our Operation Achieving Greatness, as I said on the other slide, it's the same things. These are just the outlines and things that we've done, through OAG to support our scholars. And again, just going back to the curriculum, you've seen a lot of curriculums, before, and sometimes, you just look at it as, oh, it's just another curriculum, but this one is different, right? I believe, again, just seeing how it's engaging children and putting teachers in a mindset where, hey, we want the children to productively struggle, and I think teachers are becoming aware of that, right? And that's really something that I think is having a good impact, positive impact on our scholars and our teachers, right? They're developing this as a skill, right? And we all need to continue to get better. And I think continuous growth for all of us is important. So is supporting in that area as well. All right. And so every year, our school, we have surveys that go out. So it's a district-wide survey. Our entire school, our parents, our teachers, our staff members, everyone answers questions around like, hey, what's it looking like in our culture? In addition to that, we do what's called an AFA. I know you guys have been invited, so we're looking forward to you all coming in. Advocacy for All, which really just provides us an opportunity to meet with every single scholar in the entire building, ask some really key questions. Last year, one of the questions we asked was with regards to treating each other with kindness, right? In addition to that, there was also a question on the survey that goes out to all of our scholars. And so I have to say, they definitely did not, they were the same for both, right? We had a lot of children saying that they did not feel that their peers treat them kindly. And that's something that, for school, we want to make sure that we have kindness, we want to make sure we have respect. That carries on in the classroom with children, one being collegial, but also collaborative, right? And small group instruction, you have to work together. So that being some data that we saw, I just want to put something in place to kind of have an impact. So there are many things that we've done, right? But the largest thing that I think we have done was acknowledging that we need to have more kindness in our school. And so we've started a CPK Cares Kindness Campaign, right? And so every week we have a new theme. So we've had a theme where it was say please and thank you, right? And so I do a whole spill in the morning time where children, here these are expectations. Hey, this is why it's good. This is why it's fine. This is what it can do for you, right? You never know when to make somebody's day, et cetera, et cetera. And so from there, throughout the week, our teachers, when they get to team meetings, they provide our counselor, Ms. Schuler, with the names of children who demonstrated that. We've also reached out to families, asked them to send stuff in that their children have done. And then we acknowledge the children on a loudspeaker, and then we have like a raffle and they get something, right? And so this has been, I believe it's been very favorable for our school. We continue to just add more components of it. And so our goal is for, with regards to our AFAs, but also with regards to the actual survey, that we will have a more favorable experience with regards to treating each other with kindness, and a 50% favorable rating of demonstrating kindness to their peers. And so the monitoring methods that we'll be using, review the theme of the week, our kindness cards for acts of kindness. So we actually give out a card when the children do it, and then the children, write their name on it. The teacher writes what it was for. They turn it in. The Schuler then reads it out, and then we send the emails home to families, right? Like, hey, your scholar was recognized this week for, this act of kindness, and we state what it is, and we state what happened, right? So trying to really, really help the parents also see their children in school is important, but then also acknowledging them school-wide as well that, hey, kindness does pay, right? More opportunities for mentoring and mental health support through OAG. Again, we know we have some children that might have a fixed mindset on how to talk to each other, right? And so trying to break that down and support children in those areas so they're learning how to also communicate appropriately is important, because if you've been doing something for 6 years, saying it's going to change just like that, that's not really reality, right? So we have to teach the skills. And so doing that during our mentoring sessions, doing that during our SEL lessons are areas that we really target, how to be kind. And then again, just strategic tutoring and coaching from We Are Hope, and then our admin check-ins. And so what data will determine success? Again, a 50% increase in peer interactions. The other area that we wanted to focus on, again, bringing two schools together. So it was a Likert scale survey, 1 through 5, right? And so scores 1, 2, and 3, and 3 is like in the middle, but I wanted to make sure that we were supporting the folks who are in the middle as well, right? Doesn't mean they're strongly favorable of something or they're negatively favorable of something, but they're right in the middle. So people who scored or rated as a 1, 2, or 3, we utilize those scores to really support our next initiative around staff, and supporting, right? So staff perception data revealed that 39.4% of staff believe there's a need for improvement in valuing staff voice and input in school decisions. Approximately 25% did not respond favorably if it pertains to feeling emotionally and psychologically safe, which leads to a decrease in staff morale. And so as things happen in school, teachers and administrators, we're working through this thing of trying to support each other, and so we have to find a way to ensure that we're getting, teacher voice, and then making sure teachers feel supported. So one of the things that we've done, as you might know, when we have a differentiated mode project, right? And so we have teachers in mode 1, which is an observation. We have teachers in mode 2 and mode 3. Some of those, the mode 2 is a peer collaboration. Mode 3 is like book study. I might have 2 and 3 mixed up, but regardless, our teachers came together and we met with them and they wanted to do something to improve our school morale, right? And so as we brought our two schools, CPK East and CPK together, we did the survey, we gave out awards, prizes, recognized staff members, did this really large thing to help teachers know that, hey, we're committed, to improving this. We're not shying away from it. We want to make sure that everybody's feeling like they're part of what we do here. And so by the end of the school year, staff perception data will indicate improvement in feelings of emotional and psychological safety, as well as increased voice and input in school decisions, resulting in an overall improvement of staff morale by at least 20%, as indicated by the data on the end of the year mode project survey, right? So our teachers are, keeping track of data, as well as we'll have this survey again that we do at the end of the year. And then here we have peer coaching cycles with staff wellness initiatives, observe student-centered instructional practices, inclusion of teachers from both CBK East and main campuses, administrators, and staff. So the teachers having the mode project kind of puts us in a situation where we have to work together. I'm almost done, I promise. All right. And then the final thing, 20% increase, all right? All right, so thank you for your time. Guys, there's a lot to say. I want to be able to make sure we can share, everything we're doing to support our scholars. It's important. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Metcalfe.
Right. Jason Lionel's at home probably clocking. Really trying to send me a text. He stops at 40 minutes.
Yes.
No, we started at like 17. And you.
That's right.
So, questions?
Not out of the hot seat yet.
All right, questions. Okay.
Do you have any questions or comments from?
I'll answer very succinct.
Small group instruction is particularly challenging to do for teachers who have been trained in the pedagogic practice. In what ways are you identifying students to go into small group instruction? Is this universal screen, PVAS data? What kind of is funneling students into that?
So one of two things. One is the FastBridge data, right? When we see children that are at risk. The other thing is through, just when they're taking general assessments in the classroom.
So formative assessment you're looking at, and then you're
formative assessments, some of the assessments in the FastBridge data from the screeners that we did.
Multi.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome.
And one of the things, just to answer like a second part, if you don't ask, we have the, teaching the teachers how to do it is one of the most important thing, right? We cannot assume they know how to do it, so we have done some PD on it. And then and the biggest fear around it, I'll be honest, is classroom management, right? So you don't sit with your back to the students. You have to make sure you can sit. So we have to give them all these skills in order to make sure that they have a good understanding.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay. First off, I always appreciate lots of good information and the passion. So
Thank you.
don't let anyone. That's right. Speak as one loquacious board member. Question around the peer interaction data, and my frame for asking this is we're about to enter some strategic planning, and also as a board we're thinking about policy and cell phones and the role of cell phones, particularly in the middle school, strike me as something that I would like to, as one board member, understand. This isn't to answer it now, but it's kind of a call. I want to understand what support is needed from our board, our policy, and our strategic plan to have the impact you want to see. So just throwing that out there, because now is the time to start thinking about those things. And I guess the question is, the question is, when you're talking about the peer interaction data, though, are you thinking about the digital interactions as well, or is that primarily the in the building face-to-face?
So I would say the building face-to-face we're focused on, but we know it's happening outside the school as well. You know, I mean, it comes into the school. I mean, again, it's not something that happens overnight. You know, it's something that we have to work on, you know, to fix it here so it improves at the high school. So that's our.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for that presentation. I just wanted to say, I really appreciate the staff goal as well, because I think that there's obviously intertwining. There's like a lot of overlap, and as a former teacher, I know that if the staff are feeling some way, the kids feel it, and so that's just one reason to address, but also, you know, we value our staff as well and how they feel, and we want them to feel much better about, you know, where they are, where they work, how they live in their throughout their workday. So I appreciate that you've devoted that as a goal.
One quick question about what is OAG?
Operation Achieving Greatness.
Oh, sorry. Okay, right. I'm sorry. Got it. So all of these, the interventions and the action plans, those apply to both CBK East and CBK West?
So I will say this, we're trying to integrate them across both schools. You know, but we have, while we're one school, we are still different, right? And so as we continue to work together I mean, I would not want to throw all this on sixth grade teachers who just lost all their friends from a whole building. I mean, so many things that have impacted them. It would not be it wouldn't be in my best interest as a principal, or the survey data would probably be much, right? So I want to make sure that we are supporting them. They feel supported. And the way to do that is not by just throwing everything on them, but slowly, you know, giving them opportunities to, you know, work with us. And that's why the initiative that the teachers did for the MODE project is both CBK East teachers and CBK Main teachers. So they actually are working together with that, which is something we really want.
Just a quick comment. Thank you. Just thinking about Reveal, our new math resource, and I'm just wondering, because it sounds like so far, I mean, it's only November, but it sounds like a pretty positive experience so far. And I'm hoping that some of that is at least a testament to the process that we undertook as a district to select that resource in which many teachers were involved quite heavily. And I think that shows that, you know, there's buy-in because they were part of the process. So I hope that continues as we adopt new resources.
Thank you. Second, the comments around like the school-wide culture and the effort that's going on. I think everybody knows like, culture needs strategy for lunch, right? So we can hear all these strategies, right? But if students don't feel treated fairly or just don't feel involved. Like the psychological safety, right? That's needed for me. So I absolutely appreciate the work that's being done in culture. You talked a lot about the 6 to 8 integration, but as you talked, I was hearing portrait of the graduate. And so like this idea around productive struggle fits into, they're not final, right? But this idea is around critical thinking and communication, right? I hear all of that, the productive struggle conversation as well. So definitely encourage 6 to 8, K to 12, like when we talk about it, it's going to be the full trajectory experience. Another piece, like the keynote speaker at the PSBA conference for adults talked about saying please and thank you. And so, like when we, I just finished I'm finishing an MBA program, and they talk about how to treat people. And so the fact that we're having these conversations for children, that's where it should start, right? By the time we're adults, it's like, all right. So definitely encourage, again, the direction that you all are talking about. But then finally, small group instruction, PD for teachers and new teachers, the writable AI, other resources. Another part of our role is advocacy. And so the legislator, new budget, it's announced. A lot of what we're hearing is how can we talk about things that we're spending our money on that we want to spend more money on? And so what would you add any other resources to the list that we should be saying, hey, look, this works. We need to make sure that, legislators, we have.
I don't know if you want me to answer that.
Right, there's things that are working.
But I think the biggest impact that we have, right, is just helping our teachers be better teachers. We know the mental health and wellness part, which is a part of the strategic plan, that we're focusing on. We know the impact that can have, right? Saves lives. But continue to help our teachers become better teachers, right? And not just in the aspect of teaching curriculum or having good pedagogy, right? But the other things that they're like the soft parts of teaching. Recognizing certain things in our scholars. Knowing when to make that phone call or to reach out to an administrator for support or a counselor, right? Those are things that we're continuing to work on. But obviously, we're having more training with Bill for math. McGraw-Hill, we're still working on and, getting support in that area as well. So we're continuing to build our teachers. But I would say definitely having opportunities for our children, to engross in our digital world, even more. I know we talked about AI and things like that. We know that's where it's at, and we don't want to be left behind. So, we got to continue to kind of be in the front of these areas. Other part I'll say is definitely cultural proficiency still. I know we probably haven't had as much focus as years past, but we still are working, and that's still an area that we're supporting our children and staff on. So those are areas that I would recommend.
Do we have any comments from folks in the audience? Okay. Well, thank you so very much.
Thank you. You're right.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Is there anybody online
Oh,
that may have a question?
are there any questions?
I don't see any questions.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. All right, next we'll have Dr. Hammond present for Sheringham High School.
I yielded my time to Mr. Metcalfe. All right, thank you, everyone. So I asked to try to change the way my slides would be laid out, because while we are going to talk about our Keystone data, there's a lot more that needs to be addressed at the high school that I'm undertaking. And I told you last year, one of my big focuses coming in was looking at the climate and culture. And I still think we have a culture issue that we are still addressing and still, making it the right environment for all of our students. So while we are talking about our algebra and literature data, and the one thing I do like about continuous school improvement is we are looking at the bigger picture. So yes, in some sense, we have some things to celebrate there. We have had about 10% increase in the algebra looking year to year at 11th grade, but I can't celebrate that number. It's not high enough of where what we expect of where our students should be and what we expect of how we should be performing as a district, but it is progress. And so I don't want to take that away. Our math team has been working hard over the years, revising the curriculum. But we have been meeting the CSD goal, and I anticipate us to continue going to meet that goal again this upcoming year. Literature, it appears that last year we did not meet that goal, and we took a step back. But however, when we look at when we take these exams, because this is a snapshot in 11th grade of when the students are at 11th grade. Algebra is taken in 9th grade, literature is taken in 10th grade, biology is also taken in 9th grade. And when we look at our biology students our literature students that took it last year as 10th graders and compare that to the 10th graders that took it the year before, we actually had a 6% increase in the number of proficient and advanced students, and at the same time decreasing the number of below basic by 7%. And so it's important to note that out. It's also important to note out when we're looking at the full picture at the high school, because Keystones are just a glimpse. And you have families that also opt out when you're at that high school level more so. We had the highest number of AP exams administered in the last 5 years last year. We had the most, in fact, not just the highest number, it was the most exams that we administered in 1 year over the last 5 years. We had the largest amount of students scoring 3 or higher. In fact, 73% of the students scored a 3 or higher that took an AP exam last year. At the same time, we put a lot of effort in our dual enrollment and encouraging students to take those courses, whether they are virtual or in person. Currently, we have 72 students that are taking a dual enrollment course, and that number is also increasing as we're looking at the spring enrollment. So yes, our numbers in the Keystones are going to continue to improve, but we have a lot of other things going on at the high school as well. When we look at the perception data, 67.6% of our students stated when they took that perception survey that they had a sense of belonging at the high school, which is very important for me. However, on the opposite side of that, the perception data stated that we had a lack of follow through with our MTSS process. So, identifying students that need support and putting those supports in place and tracking those supports. And then you also had a 52% of 9th graders had 5 or more Swiss referrals. So they were carrying a lot of behavioral referrals from teachers. They also had the highest amount of D's and F's. I believe it was around 80% of the referrals were from 9th grade. And the next one down was like 40%, which was 10th graders. So those are issues that I more so look at when I'm looking at these numbers and why aren't they where we're supposed to be? There's other things that I need to focus upon. And while we did not talk about biology because they are changing the science standards in that exam, it is important to also note that in last year's biology exam, administration of the exam, the students had a 10% gain in the number of students getting proficient and advanced. So there are some really good things going on over at the high school. So when I talk about the action plans, again, it's kind of combined for me in the way I look at it. We did have a new rollout of curriculum for math. So while our numbers are getting better, we are still looking at how we are going to continue to improve and make even stronger gains. So we as well as Cedarbrook moved to Reveal. We also did away with IXL, which I'm very, very happy about being a former math teacher. Our students, by the time they got to the high school, they were IXL'd out. They did it all day, every day from elementary school up. They got to us and they're like, oh, we're doing IXL. Hey. And so it is really good and refreshing to have a new curriculum there. We also had a new rollout of curriculum in science, even though we're not talking about science. Savas, we have used Miller and Levine for biology, and then experience chemistry and experience physics. And so that's now also getting rolled out so that we can continue to improve and address those areas of curriculum. And we're still revising in all three of those areas, in algebra, science, and literature, ELA. We're revising our common assessments, just making sure that not only are we putting new ones out there and having them, combined and looked at, but we're constantly looking at that data in our PLCs. This year, we did a extra emphasis with our department chairs as well, so that we could empower them more to be the leaders of their departments. So they are meeting with us, getting PD with us weekly or bi-weekly. And then they are also turning around and pushing that back to their departments and running those PLCs and keeping them looking at the data and talking about the data. I mentioned with all of the perception data and all of the, the bigger picture data from the previous slide about my ninth grade, that was why we decided this year to completely reshape that ninth grade experience. And we always had the freshman transition program, but this year we moved more to like a ninth grade academy model. So similar to Cedarbrook, how they have the different teams, we do have 2 teams of ninth graders that each team shares a common set of teachers. Then we have the team that always would have chosen freshman seminar, the freshman transition program. And then we have our ninth grade PBL team. That program is overseen by one administrator, works with all of our ninth graders. And we have one counselor that works with all of our ninth graders to provide more consistency. And then we did a massive change of our building as well, where we've relocated teachers so that we could put the ninth grade in an area of the building to kind of restrict them moving all around and getting lost in the building. And then last but not least, we also made a major focus on the improvement of our MTSS program, because it was only about 3.5 years of existence in the high school. And so we really needed to put some systems in place to make sure that students were getting the supports that they need, as well as the follow-up would be taking place. So when we get to talking about that was where our focus was the MTSS on the academic and behavioral support. The perception data, again, it highlighted that teachers and students felt more that they belonged. They felt that the environment was improving and it was becoming a more safe and positive environment. But there was an inconsistency with disciplinary actions and follow-up, and the behavioral referrals, as well as the low academic performance, was continuing to drop, and we weren't putting those proper supports in place for students. And so revamping the MTSS process and connecting in the PBIS component of that is where we wanted to focus, because we believe that all students at the high school should feel valued and know that they belong. And students that are having any type of academic or behavioral challenges should be receiving the supports that they need when they need them. And we also need to make sure that we have a lot of students that are doing the right things and that are often get overlooked because they're always doing the right things, and they need to be valued and celebrated for their achievements. So we need to recognize students for the positive things that are already going on at the school while encouraging other students to meet those same expectations. So by the end of the first quarter, we wanted to make sure that our MTSS structures were in place and that we had our team meetings set, and our documentation procedures established with all of our staff. We also wanted to make sure that our PBIS and MTSS teams held at least one joint meeting so that we could start that process of making sure that those two were becoming one and merging that message. Each quarter, we want to make sure that the MTSS team analyzes our DNF rates and behavioral incident data, aiming at least a 5% decrease from the previous year. And beginning in the quarter two, we want to make sure that our PBIS team highlights the Pride initiatives and staff and student recognitions in each of our monthly newsletters. We'll see all of that through the summary surveys, perception surveys, our Swiss referrals, and our data analysis reports. One thing I do want to also point out while I'm making my presentation, the opposite of what we just had, is that already looking at the end of our first quarter, we had the overall Ds and Fs from just last year was already down by students 10%, which last year was my first year taking over. It was down 19% from the year before. So it went down 19%, then went down another 10%. And then our behavioral data, our ninth graders also were dropping in that as well with the number of referrals that they would have been receiving. So we still have work to do and a lot of work because, you know, we have a lot of changes that we have to be putting in place to make all this happen, but we are in the right direction and continuing to push forward. Thank you.
Very, very much, Dr. Hammond. Is anyone going to report?
Thank you for that report. I do have a couple of questions. One is sort of a clarification. And I remember not understanding this last year, but if you can go back to the 11th grade accountability reporting.
I'm almost there.
So is it that we're reporting when students are in the 11th grade, even if they took the exam when they were 8th graders?
Correct.
So the state holds that until they're in the 11th grade cohort and they report it all at one time.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that. And literature, they're taking in 10th grade.
Correct, but the state
Everyone's
also
taking it.
they also holds that to the end of 11th grade to report.
Got it. Okay.
Wait, I have one more thing to add to that.
Yes.
The other thing that this will capture is it captures the best score for students who have taken it over and over again. So if you have an 11th grade student and they've taken Algebra 1 twice, it'll hold the best score, and then it holds it until they're in 11th grade and it counts it on the report.
Thank you. And I guess my other question is there something else, seeing that our scores, I love the improvement, love to see progress. Is there something else that we can provide as a support to students prior to them taking Algebra 1, prior to the Keystone, to boost their chances of success when they do take it?
So I saw Rachel raise her hand.
So, as well, we talked before about the purchase the math curriculum. It actually came with a personalized support pathway called Hammond. And so our students 6 through essentially algebra 2 are now afforded not just the curricular resource deal, they also have this other program where they take an assessment. It then provides a personalized pathway for wherever the student is, in addition to whatever course they're in at that time. And so their recommendation for teachers has been giving students a depending on the building that they're in, depending on the grade level, some of that class, some of that having to turn wins, looking at that, some of that might be homework. But that was part of our hope, is that it would start to support some of that. The other piece of what we're doing is around the fast bridge data. When our students are coming back as potentially some are high risk for number sense or math fluency, et cetera, trying to talk to them to get that about what those supports look like. If Alex isn't enough, what are the things we look at? The other piece of the for 6 to 8 was cultural piece. And it is about more sense of faculty and trying to increase students' literacy for those grade levels to try to address that. Because the reality is, you know, it's not a one grade level thing. Everything.
Thank you very much for that. And my other question is, so far this year, I don't know if you can speak to this yet, but have you seen a decrease in the Swiss referrals yet with the 9th grade academy that's structure that's been implemented?
Yes, I should have gotten the numbers for you, but I did look, and the 9th grade has dropped. They also have dropped at least 4% in the number of students carrying a D or an F, which we also made our requirements a little more stricter. And so with that, we had a drop as well. So yes, it's working, but I want to see more. So I don't want to celebrate until I expect it.
Small one. Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on what Felicity just asked. So you saw a small, that 4% you said from 9th to 9th, but also was there last year those high Swiss numbers for last year's 9th graders or this year's 10th graders? So do we know how they're doing?
I will look.
Okay.
I didn't even look.
I didn't know
because I was focusing on.
My question originally had been when you said there was a reduction, was it 9th to 10th or 9th to 9th? So I figured
But I will say that each year, because of the maturity of year to year, that always improves. But I didn't look to see if a normal progression to that is.
Thank you.
Just a little bit of context for the state average for algebra is 41%. So we're very close. And then for ELA, it's 49%. So we're above the state average. So just to give context on those numbers.
I did actually, I have another acronym question. Tell me again what SWIS stands for, please.
School-wide information systems.
Okay.
Information.
Pretty sure that's right. And it actually is paired with our positive behavior intervention and support systems. Within SWIS, there are mechanisms to track referrals, not just for major incidents, but for minor incidents, because we actually have a process through PBIS where we go in and we do what are called TIPS teams meetings. We go in, we take a look at all of the referrals are there, we look at trends. For example, do we see that, we have 15 referrals coming out of our class and none from the rest of the building? Do we have 17 referrals just from one child? It's a tracking mechanism that allows us to really analyze the data so that we can provide the support that is necessary to both the children and sometimes the adults.
And it lets us look at even the time of the day that it's happening, which is why we just did some one-time blitzes during third block to improve attendance or getting our tardies during that
time. So I think this is part of the MTSS process. This is another thing I can sort of never keep track of is how do the counselors sort of fit into the MTSS process, and what are the other mental health supports we have at the high school?
Do you want to speak to the counselors and I'll speak to the mental health?
Okay,
Or do you want to speak to both?
I'll try and fill in with whatever I'm missing. So the counselors, we have academic and behavioral. Our counselors are part of that process in terms of tracking their students and putting in the tier twos and being with the behavioral side of things. The teachers are more on the academic piece, and we'll put in the tier one supports and creating those intervention plans. Correct?
Yes. And quite a few of our counselors, especially on the behavioral side, are contracted and we have flexed them over time. We do have counselors that support students for different types of needs as well. So it's when we actually are in the MTSS process, a lot of the assignment of the counselors is dependent upon what the student actually needs. And we have got better about doing that assignment over time because we want to be more targeted with the support.
And you also know that we did also change the way our counselors to provide that support to make sure that we had that one person for 9th grade, so we had that consistency, so that the other counselors also got that range. In terms of mental health, we have our mental health and wellness counselor, which is kind of actually two of them, because one of them, well, they both kind of float back and forth. One will support Cedarbrook, and then one will support Epic. And so at the high school, we have someone there every day of the week, but 3 days it's one person, 2 days it's another person. We also have we're still working with Chris Pender and his group, working with our males. And then we are starting up this week with our girls circle. And what's that?
Pathfinder.
I believe so.
Yeah, it's the one you just.
And so I'm actually looking forward to that. We just met last week to make sure everything was set up and good to go. And we had some backup plans on the timing of when those meetings would take place.
Aldersgate?
Yes, we also have our Aldersgate counselor. We still have our SAP counselor that comes in once a week. And I don't believe it, I think it's.
Your choice.
Well, I was going to get to that one, but the drug and alcohol counselor.
Oh, that.
I think that is also
that
one.
referral process.
Yes, that's also once a week.
Yeah.
And then we also are about to start with, we already had We Are Hope at Epic. And so now they're moving to the high school as well. They're right now finalizing their referrals so that they can start working with kids as well.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, I'm still a little bit confused about that counselors, but that's okay. I can figure that out later.
Yeah, I can help us with that. So originally we had primarily our counselors running the MTSS program. We expanded it this year to 2. Also, Dr. talked about this. So our counselors meet about once a week to talk about the behavior side. So we look at the Swiss data, we look at attendance, and there's a screener that happens in the fall, spring, called SRSS. The counselors for their caseload look at those sets of data in general, and they also discuss any students who are brought up with concern or any other reason. And so we just broke apart the counselor meetings for MTSS by the alphabet or by the grade. So Mr. Ryan had his 9th grade meeting last week. Mr. DiPiero has his tomorrow. But it's actually the alphabet. We go through each and then we together the whole group. And then part of that work is looking at who currently is receiving intervention, needs intervention, how does that go? And part of that is what Dr. Hammond has just talked about, all of those support services. One of the things that we're working on is trying to take our progress monitoring and getting a real sense of how effective are the interventions, how are the gaps we have. Then the other side, our academic side, is house more with our department chairs, and they're looking at the academic side, the team task list that Dr. Gibbons was talking about, and then disseminating some of that learning data out. I also have data wanted for the 9th grade academy. So to be fair, this is attendance from last year overall versus at this point in time this year. So we had 69% of our students were on track for attendance last year. This year, 77%. Really, what the good one is our Swiss data. Last year, 69% of our students had an issue with Swiss, either multiple or far too many multiple. This year, we are at, I can do math correctly. But 36%. So 69% of our students we're seeing a pretty marked drop in Swiss referrals. And particularly the high incidence dropped from 36% to 17%. So,
I just want to check for understanding. And so the MTSS process is designed to identify students in academic and behavioral areas and place categories. Tier 1 being universal supports, which can be classroom or school-wide, or even kind of like cohort-based supports. Tier 2 being small group instruction, Tier 3 being individual. Typically, the MTSS process includes a universal screening process for both behavioral, social, emotional, and well-being supports and the academic supports, which I hear you taking in concert. Like I hear a lot of different data points being used. I also hear a universal screen for social emotional learning being used. So I'm trying to check for understanding. One of the things that I see is the largest challenge when schools are implementing MTSS systems is effective use of Tier 2 small group instruction. I think we have a much better understanding actually of how academically we provide small group instruction and small group supports for kids in MTSS systems. But I'm curious from your perspective, are we providing mainly Tier 3 supports and services, or providing Tier 2 supports and services? Also knowing that MTSS and its implementation in general is something that is a process and not, it'll be a year-over-year focus that we will continue to press on. But I'm just curious where you perceive we're at. We're providing mostly kind of small group and Tier 3, because those are kind of, that's how you press on the kids who really need the most. What are your thoughts there?
Two runs, my.
Awesome.
So we worked really hard last year, myself, Ms. Ferraro, and Ms. Rodriguez, who's our supervisor of MTSS, to create a mention grid. Recognized there's sort of two things that happen. We have district level supports and then we have village level supports. And we were trying to figure out what are the gaps to that. So that was the work we did last year. And at the beginning of this year, we rolled out the district level one. We asked buildings to create their own copy of it and to start adding what are the things that we have. So we've had a lot of really great conversations with the councils in particular around behavior, because that tends to be the larger lift in 9 through 12 buildings. I would say most of our supports for behavior are Tier 2 and Tier 3. A lot of them are potentially both, depending on the support. And then we definitely have some Tier 3. There are also gaps that we talked about. And one of the things that we just talked about today is looking at what is regular maintenance support look like for students around self-management, self-regulation, and what are the supports that our counselors can provide. And how we can help them provide that. So what sort of training, but also what sort of materials we might provide. We have second step in K through 8. We lost from 9 through 12, so we're looking at what the support plan is like as well to try to bolster not just Tier 2, but also Tier 1 around that. Because again, a lot of the support that we provide for students around social needs from K8. And then as with a lot of things that happen in MTSS, it also starts to as we to 10 and 14-year-old. Everybody has a 14-year-old, that's their product. And so trying to adjust to the reality is MTSS often runs at elementary, and we're getting really tight at Cedarbrook and the high school, and trying to create places. We're at the MCIU today and creating everyone issue. What does MTSS look like in a high school? What does it look like in middle school? It starts to get a lot harder. We definitely have gaps that we're trying to fill. But
I just want to add a little to that, because this ties into the conversation at policy around changing the graduation requirements and having an additional health credit that could then support some of the one mental health and SEL instruction that students need. Because I think part of why you see so many students that end up, especially on the mental health and wellness side and then behavioral side, they end up in tier 2 and tier 3 because there is no tier 1 instruction. Because they're still forming and learning at 14. The other thing that we didn't yet mention is the use of Panther Prep is important because a lot of the teachers are using adaptive scheduler to bring their students in and work in small groups with certain groups of students in that first half hour of the day around very particular things, whether it's grade, improvement or whether it's some level of skill improvement. But that half hour was intentionally set for that reason. And some of our counselors are even available to do that as well as they provide supervision and support to the students as they're coming in. So there is a space and a time in the day for that. I think the harder part of it is in a building where you have 1,400 students, and we're trying to get better around the MTSS processes, managing the needs and then figuring out what the groups look like and who is responsible for supporting and helping where. And that honestly requires resources, staff, and a good system. And we're trying to build the system so we know what kind of resources and staff we need for that.
I appreciate that insight. I bring it up mainly because I'm thinking about our main areas of responsibility, but budgeting, policy, curriculum. I know there are curriculums that can help with universal supports and services related to 9 through 12 in particular. Also know budget is effort. And so when we think about our budgeting as we come into a budgeting season, maybe this, like something we want to keep this in mind as we move into that session and see what supports you need. So.
Yeah, I was headed in that same direction, and we actually received presentations on not to say this year, but as the MTSS evolves, I think even the pilot over the platform being used. I see that conversation happening. It seems like we're going to have that at high school level. So appreciate it, encouraged by it, but it seems like we will have. That was the main way. We are going to have to make budget decisions specifically to the high school, specific for MTSS. We had a great example of that on our last agenda with Pathfinders, behavioral. So I think it was actually opposite. When we had the K to 8, it was like, okay, we have all these academic things, so we need to think about social emotional. Now we're talking about the high school type of flip. So there's such a nuance. I feel like the whole theme is like, you can see the data point, but there's so much nuance the deeper you dig. So I'm definitely encouraged that we're hearing from different aspects of I also had a point for clarification around the belonging data. We've looked at that a couple times. So do we know where that is trending in terms of students who feel like they belong? I think it was somewhere around 67%.
It was around.
I can't remember if that was
slide.
Better.
Pressure. 67.6% of the students that filled out the survey said they had that sense of belonging.
Do we know the trend of?
It's trending up.
Okay.
Yes, big time trending up. That was definitely an area last year that was something that needed to be looked at. And then we also saw last year from meeting with students that even though it was trending up, our LGBTQ community was not feeling that. And last year we met with them and we even we had students give a presentation to our staff on how our staff could be more supportive in helping everyone belong in the school. And it was empowering for them and it was empowering for my staff to hear that.
Thanks. That's a question. Oh yeah, the last point. I think as you're talking about it for resident feeling, some of those 5 instances, like take your headphones off, right? Or you're talking about cell phone and the whole way. So I feel like as we see those numbers now, we're actually talking about better relationships between. So as we think about belonging and we think about, again, the nuance is all connected the deeper you dig. So it does seem like things are connected.
Chills. I have a very high level. I think last month, I gave constructive criticism around the data format, and I wanted to give constructive celebration. I really appreciated the way it was very clear, and when cohort data was possible, it was really easy to understand how the cohorts moved, and then when cohort data wasn't possible, it's easy to understand what the targets were. So thank you all so much. Packing a lot of information in a small grid.
Thank you, Dr. Hammond. Do you have any questions online? Yeah. Right, thank you, principals.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We coach, perfect.
All right, back to Ms. Collins.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to present an update on a comprehensive plan. As you all know, we submitted the plan in the spring. Dr. Savage gave a presentation around the goals and the priorities. So I'm just going to give a brief update on where we are now. Our first priority was really spoke to the reorganization of our schools, our elementary schools becoming K-5, our middle school transitioning to 6 to 8. This year so far, we've already met that target. As you know, we have our 6th graders CPKE that's at the modulars. In addition to that, to help support our students with the transition, we have established the 6th grade academy at CPK East, and then we have the 9th grade academy at the high school. Now, we do have Ms. Nelson here. Ms. Nelson, would you like to speak in regards to the 6th grade academy?
Yes. Hey, everyone.
Hi.
So I have the handout because I always like to take it away. And I won't be before you long, but yes, that's great. So this is kind of like my mini vision board for the 6th grade academy. So I always like to plan with, the end in mind and where I would like to see 6th grade end up in terms of like programming to really help students transition. You saw in the academic data that, there's tends to be drops in academics around those transition times. And so we wanted to take some things that we know are things that work and some things that we're doing a little bit differently around the 6th grade experience. Because 6th graders are special. They are very special. 11-year, that 11th year is filled with wonderful things, all kinds of interesting challenges, and we have to address all of them. And so some of the things that you see here are things that are in progress. Some things are things that we are working towards, because this is my vision board that you're seeing on paper. The thing that I think I'm the most excited about is the turnaround project. And so that's a project that we're working on where I had all of the teams, we have 4 teams, give me a list of 10 to 15 students. And there are students whose behaviors are a challenge, daily or multiple times a week, they're finding themselves in discipline spaces and just kind of negative school experiences. Because that's at a minimum 40 students who are coming to school most days, not wanting to be there, not having good experiences, and then it kind of gets them in this, I call it the hamster wheel, and they can't get off. And so what I had the teachers do was to give me this list of students, and then they had to find at least one thing to really celebrate about this student, because their days are on a negative, in a negative space. And so I wanted something positive. Every teacher had to put down something positive that we could celebrate with that student. It could be a skill, it could be, I know. And so from that list, now we're developing programming to celebrate the strengths of those students. So I'll give you, I have a student who, she is talkative and she always knows all the tea, as the kids say. She knows all everyone's business and all the things. And so she's going to be helping me do our morning announcements. And so turning that, presence that she has and the leadership that she has, kids are always telling her things and she's always in the know, and turning that into something positive. So she's going to be doing announcements for me. And that's how she'll start her day, in a space of positivity instead of a negative space. And so I have actually over 40 students that we're working on programming for to really just celebrate. And if it's successful, which I do believe it will be, because anytime you're giving kids good positive attention, it works. That's 40 to 60 kids that could be positively impacted. And if their attitudes towards school are changing and they're treating their peers better because their attitudes are better, then as they're moving on through, and we're getting into the comments on, feeling like your peers are not kind to you, right? Like all of this can start to change. And I'm looking at, the upward trajectory of this kind of work and what it can mean, for their K-12 experience. So I'm just highlighting that because that's the one I'm really excited about. But there are other things that are in there, things that are supportive of things that are happening at Cedarbrook, Maine, and even at the high school. But I really believe that the 6th grade year is critical. We can still get them in 6th grade. And so if we can make them really strong, I really believe in strong roots so that we can have beautiful flowers. And so I want to see beautiful flowers at the high school. And I really believe that the work that we're putting in for 6th grade is going to really help build some strong roots. So I'll leave that with you and let Ms. Collins continue on, but thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we are definitely moving in the right direction with our with our transition plan. Priority number 2 is to reinforce our attendance practices, to increase data errors and to reduce data errors and accuracy. One of the things we did this year so far, this target is in progress. We continue to review our programs. We did do some updates to scholarship, which is the program we use for students coming to the building at Cedarbrook and at the high school. We noticed that there was some discrepancies between the data, between the attendance collection data being reported to the state and actually what we were seeing in our system. So we've continued those procedures and processes and possibly identify additional resources that we can ensure that we are reporting accurate data and capturing our students' attendance. So this goal is still in progress for this year, but with the key pieces that we've already started to do some of the pieces to lay the foundation, and we did do the upgrade to scholarship, which is very important. Next priority is the utilization of differentiation and scaffolding to design engaging learning experiences. You heard from our buildings today, specifically at Cedarbrook, the focus last year and especially in our K-8 schools, with an emphasis on small group instruction. So we are continuing to develop data analysis protocols that specifically examine trends in student subgroup academic achievement data and provide central office support during professional learning opportunities with the goal of full implementation by June 30, 2026. With this priority, we've had professional development for our staff with the use of Linkit and Intervention Manager as well to capture so everyone understands how to access their data and to track their students' progress academically. In addition, as you've heard, the implementation of MTSS throughout our schools K through 12, and that we continue to transition all of our class-based assessments into Linkit to ensure that all of our students' data is in one place. And the fact that we have now ensured that all of our MTSS teams are up and running in all of our buildings. So this target is in progress, and I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Rachel for her support in this process. Also, Katie, who's not here as well, and Diane. Our next priority is ensuring that we have effective standards-aligned curriculum and assessments in place to ensure that our students are engaged in grade level standards and preventing the widening of the opportunity gap. Our goal, we have goals, and you'll see this 4A, 4B, 4C as I go through the next few slides, because we have goals for the key core content areas, ELA, mathematics, and science. So for target year 1 for ELA was completion of K-5 ELA curriculum and common assessments with corresponding horizontal PLCs to support implementation. I am happy to say that we do have K-5 curriculum and common assessments. They are complete. We provided horizontal PLCs on our professional learning days. We started that last school year. We continued that into this school year as well, where our teachers continue to review our programs and our alignment to ensure that the data that we're seeing, how we best support our students, everyone's on the same page on what our students need and how we can best ensure that they're getting everything that we can give them utilizing our new materials. And in addition, we are in the process of an HQIM, high quality instructional materials adoption for K-5 ELA. So we're excited. So hopefully by the end of the school year, we'll be coming back to you with a presentation on the adoption of our new HQIM resource.
That follows the science of reading.
So goal 4 is to ensure horizontal and vertical alignment of K-12 math curriculum, including varied common assessments that allow students to demonstrate their proficiency in multiple ways and adopt corresponding high-quality instructional materials by the end of this comprehensive plan cycle, which is June 30, 2028. So completion, so for target year 1, also emphasis on K-5 math curriculum and corresponding horizontal PLCs to support. I can also say that this also is complete. So at this time, we have the K-5 curriculum and common assessments for elementary mathematics. We've done the horizontal PLCs. We are in our final years of Envision for elementary. So that high quality instructional material adoption cycle will start next school year. Last is 4C, which focuses on K-12 STEM curriculum. Completion of the K-12 curriculum map and scope and sequence to facilitate adoption of high-quality instructional materials for K-12 STEM that align to the STIL standards. This is currently in progress. We have completed the K-5 curriculum and common assessments for science, for STILs for K-5. We have provided horizontal PLCs. In addition, we've had PD for our secondary science teachers on the STIL standards here, supported by Rachel and Dr. Savage. In addition to that, we have I'm sorry. In addition, we have adopted high quality instructional materials for K through 12 science and provided professional development on our new series at all levels.
Can I chime in? And I just want to add one more thing. I want to thank Dr. Pimental too, because when we looked through the STEEL standards, we realized that some of the STEEL standards would be embedded in the K-5 STEM courses. So as the STEM teachers are now going through and building the curriculum with Dr. Pimental, we're finding that we have multiple opportunities now to really cover these standards. So that is in progress as well, but it is an important part of our process as we are facing all of the changing and the shifting mechanism that DVE is putting in place around science.
So for this target, we are still in progress because we're still developing the curriculum documents to support K-12. And that concludes my update on the comprehensive plan.
Not a question. I'm just really excited. We're seeing all these approval for conferences on our agenda. I'm going to be looking forward to approving people going to present at conferences around science of reading, because we're ahead of the curve. It seems like with the laws that are going to be mandating some of those things and integrating that into PLC. So very excited.
Yes, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you. I'm looking at goal 2 around attendance, and I love this increase to 90% goal. What was our average attendance previous?
Well, it varies by school and by grade level. So the state has an average that they don't report out on a PA Future Ready. And just so you know, when you look at PA Future Ready, it's always a year, so it wouldn't be this last school year, it's the year before that, right? So those are the targets that we are attempting to try and meet. And then we saw with some of the discrepancy that we received back with the PA Future Ready report for the high school in particular, that we need to do some realignment like we did in the past to ensure accurate reporting of student attendance, because it was significantly lower than what we were used to. But you can see the attendance for the year prior to the PA Future Ready. Any other questions? Nope. Excellent. All right. So next up, this is quick. I promise, the academic calendar update. So the committee met to review the proposed calendars, which included, based on feedback from our last Ed Affairs meeting, there was 2 calendars proposed, one that had, which you saw at the last meeting, and then a second calendar for each year that had the 2-week winter break. The committee was sent a brief little Google form to give me some feedback in regards to which of the 2 calendars that they preferred. We do meet tomorrow afternoon. So based on our conversations tomorrow, we will then come back together as from the committee and with the Department of Office of Education to present at our December Educational Affairs Committee our proposed calendar for 26-27 and 27-28.
Any questions, comments? Seeing none, thank you. Comments? Then with it, Mr. Schultz, yes.
I was not at the last meeting where we got to say praises and thanks to the wonderful leadership of Ms. Henry. So is it all right if I won't go on for like too long. All right.
Just like 40 minutes.
Just like 40 minutes. But Pam, we've served on the board together for 8 years. Wow. We've been through so much, and I just wanted to thank you for everything you brought to this board. I have learned so much from you about myself. Some things I didn't want to learn, but keeping a calm demeanor, showing leadership through helping people realize that the storm around them we can get through together. And you got us through COVID, and you have brought us. Made space for an amazing administrative team, and I know the storms keep coming, and we're getting through one right now. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for the opportunity to have you in my life and to see what leadership.
When we met, you didn't even have babies.
That's true. Oh my goodness! You know.
Thank you, Dan. For
You know what I will. Unless there's anything else anyone else wants to say.
There is nothing else.
I'll second it.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hey, this meeting never ends.
Motion to hold.